So thank you very much for being here tonight. So I was a child that was extremely afraid of the dark, and there was monsters just lying everywhere, under the bed and in the closet, and I was afraid to open the door and see what was there. Before I would go to bed at night, I made sure that the door was just securely closed. And I think a lot of people approach feedback like that. They see this door slightly ajar, and they're afraid to see what is behind it. And I think no matter what your role is in a company, you elicit or you provide feedback. I've been an educator. I've set up a program in Japan in 3 different campuses. When I was in venture stage finance with H&Q, I would provide and give feedback. When I led client services in the Americas with Amex, or product manager with Expedia and other companies, even a founder, you get a lot of feedback. As a leader, which all of you will be, or maybe you are with your teams, you get and elicit feedback in the roles. And then peers, you give feedback. So I think everyone here has been qualified. You've been giving and getting feedback throughout your lives. But I want to shine a light on what's in the closet, and I want to peel back. What is feedback? The why of the feedback, and then we're going to go into the how of feedback. So it's amazing. Feedback is something that it's a word, it's a mechanism that's been around for centuries, but it's actually a word that's only been around since post-World War II, when we were talking about feedback loops with circuitry. But feedback itself is a relatively new word. But we certainly hear this a lot, and I want you to feel, what does it feel like when somebody's, can I give you feedback? Some of us get that guttural reaction, and you want to know who is giving you feedback on what, how are they giving feedback. Especially if you don't have context, you can kind of feel your gut clench up. So I want to talk a little bit about why. Before I go into what was going on, could I hear who was the person who was eliciting feedback on their blog? Can I see a raise of hands? Okay, can I hear from a couple of you about what your experience was on eliciting feedback, on the feedback you received?
For which instance?
For any of them. Like, what did it feel like? Did one feel more useful than the other? Okay, yeah.
No, it was very frustrating.
Yeah, thanks for speaking up. Yeah, that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. It's very hard. Thank you. Great. Thank you. Does anyone else who's a number one? Yes?
Yeah, I feel I don't feel comfortable when he is bashing about the negative parts. But if I think I can manage my emotion, I think I can get more critical or helpful tips from that. Well, the good
I bashed him pretty hard.
Yeah, I heard you.
Well, the good feedbacks, I really feel elated, but it's everything we have achieved already. So,
Yeah.
The actual helpful info is limited, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But they're both better than no feedbacks.
Yeah, they are. That's great. And we have time to hear from a number 2, but then we're going to move on. Does anyone else who was giving feedback want to speak?
Oh, who was giving?
Yeah.
Well, I gave a lot of negative feedback.
Yes, I heard.
I could see that he was taken aback.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting, yes, exactly. We had 3 rounds of feedback. 1 was positive, 1 was negative, and the 3rd was no feedback. And there's actually some psychology that's employed here with the types of feedback. So we're used to feedback. Our bodies give you feedback.
I was a lot more animated when I was giving negative feedback. You would notice versus positive.
That might be a different talk. Yeah, so what you have here is the way that positive and negative stimulate the places, in your brain. So if you give somebody positive feedback, actually it opens them up to hear more negative feedback. So it's interesting. A lot of people say don't pay attention to the positive feedback. You actually should. You should know what's working, but also there's a way to give feedback. But the negative feedback actually stimulates another part of you, which is more the flight or fight, and it makes you a lot more, you feel some reticence and some hesitance, and you might actually feel attacked, and you might feel like you have to defend yourself. So both of these bring up some emotion, the positive and negative. So one way you might do that, and this is from Brené Brown, is actually there's 3 strengths and then an opportunity. And so in order to know about how to interact with our customers and recognize and provide good feedback, we need to know what good feedback looks like. And so here, imagine the 3 strengths. So the 3 women on the beach and then the positive here. So if I go back to the blog talk that we just did, say, hey, I really loved you using first person. I really connected what you had there, and I thought the topic was really interesting, and the length was perfect to keep my attention. I noticed a lot of grammatical errors that I think detracted from what it is that you were trying to say. Why don't you sleep on it or give it to me and I'll correct it and have it to you in the morning? And that's a much more succinct way versus just positive, just negative, or nothing, because that's more actionable. And this is another way to put it. If you really know what, and again, ask with your users and your customers, do you know what the expected outcome is? What's going right? What's not going well? And then what are the ways to do that? So let's get into the crux of things. So there's different types of feedback we've been getting in our entire life. In school, we've gotten the qualitative and quantitative. Quantitative, you got 10 out of 10. You all are amazing. You got an A+ on your score. Qualitative, you get along well with others. We'll also give you an A for that. So that's the qualitative versus quantitative. Again, here, informational versus the motivational. We've been getting this the whole life too. You have, this is your blood pressure, this is your pulse, or, hey, that caliper, we can get a lot more this year than last year, maybe hit the gym. And that might be motivational. But in user-facing or customer-facing feedback, you want to look at vanity and actionable. So yes, you have some nice, unique visitors. You feel really good that particular day where you have the spike here. But what caused that spike? How much did you pay to get that spike? Where are the channels? So it's much more interesting to get actionable feedback. What was the cost of that? What can you do with that? What's your customer acquisition costs? And we'll go more into the analytics. So feedback is really important because you want to know what you're doing well and where you can do better. And there's different ways to do that with early customer feedback. And again, these are some ways, but I actually like getting in front of the customer itself. So when I started Mindspan, I asked everyone that I knew and who I loved, what did you think of that? And it's amazing. People are like, oh, that's amazing. It's the best idea. Especially ask your mom about something. And we're so polite in Seattle. You're going to get this answer. That's wonderful. And that's probably the way you're asking the question. Do you love it? What is somebody going to say? Yes, of course I love it. And when you engage your users as well, you need to think about how you're asking the question and how you're listening to the answer.